pencil. What? After 4. Can you do your math homework meanwhile? మ్యాథ్స్ చేయి. టేబుల్ మీద కూర్చొని చేయి, కౌచ్లో కాదు. సాన్వి, సాన్వి,
Paramahansa Paravitakacharya also Teta Sitashi Shimad. His Divine Grace Sabaya Chandanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Sadigor Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopa Gopanath Shaya Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Machuradam Ki Jai Sade Ki Jai Yuvanamai Kajai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Kajai, Samveda Bhakta Vrindi Kajai.
रात के गोली निकाला
Hari Hari Bol.
तो
All
गोलियां गिर
glories
गए
the
बोले
assembled
तेरा मिलते नहीं रहा
devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay. So Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pajani Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarni. So we'll continue with our reading of the Jaiva Dharma. And we've just been hearing from the Jaiva Dharma of how bad association is. Really bad. And we're going to continue hearing about this. And as we cautioned yesterday, that one shouldn't just offend people who are not yet in Krishna consciousness by avoiding any sort of interaction with them. Because in this material world, you got to interact with so many people who are in Krishna conscious, who are not Krishna conscious, who may be eating human beings. Just like we talked about yesterday, that there's just like you have your KFC here, where you get a bucket of legs. So the Rakshasas, they also have their KMC, Kentucky. When actually KFM. Sorry, I got it wrong. Kentucky Fried Men. That's what it stands for. So they also have in their bucket of legs. So anyway, so whoever you're dealing with, and basically it's probably better to eat people than it is to eat cows. There's less of a reaction.
Yeah, 1 for 1, right?
He has a 1 for 1. Like you eat people. So it's better to be cannibal. So anyway, cows, you got to take a birth for each hair on that cow. Human beings, just one birth. So, all glories to cannibalism. Anyways, so we have to interact with so many people who do so many crazy things, and who are dharmic or not yet into Krishna consciousness. But we should interact in a very kind way with them. We would not take intimate association. I mean, even Lord Ram was ready to accept Ravan as his own. If Ravan just gave up Sita Devi and gave up eating meat too. But he was ready to accept him. And actually there's that story about Hidimba, that Bhimsen was not the Bhimsen here, but the Bhimsen in the Mahabharata was very upset because after he left and there was Gato Kutch and everything. Anyway, so he left and Hidimba was alone. She started eating meat again. Probably people. Yeah, I think they started eating people. And he was really upset with them for that. So we have to be kind to everybody, but we don't take their intimate association. So don't take these verses out of context and just start acting like a crazy person. Just dealing with your mother or your father, or if they happen to be non-Krishna conscious people, just like, oh my God, you're a demon, gotta take a bath in the Ganges just after seeing your face, Mom. So don't start doing that. So you take this out of context. Anyway, so let's continue. So, Obagadatu Mirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshun Miditam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So now we're going to share the screen. And there we go. Okay. Yep. Cool. Everybody can see. All right. This actually, the context of this is in a discussion between Advaita Das and Digyambara. Digyambara is actually a Shakta, one who actually worships the energy of the Lord and thinks the energy is everything. And then Advaita Das is a devotee, and he believes in Shakti Mam, which is the origin or the source of the Shaktas or the controller of the Shaktas, who is Krishna. There's Shakti and Shakti Mam. So anyway, let's read these heavy scriptures. Wow, heavy. Maybe you should skip over it. All right, anyway, we'll do it anyway. So, Param Gatopi Vedanam Sarasashartha Vedyapi Yonasaveshvare Bhaktastam Vidyad Purushadamam. Of course, we read that first. Yes, we will continue from that point. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord. He must be considered the lowest of mankind. Garuda Purana, another verse. Prayaschitani chirnani narayana paranmukam na nishpunanti rajendra surakumbam ivapagaha. O king, even great atonement does not purify persons who are opposed to Narayan, just as many rivers do not clean a liquor pot. Bhagavatam 6:1-18. Next verse. Hanti nindati vaidvishti vaishnavan anabhinandati krujate yati no harsham darshane patanani shat. Whoever kills or blasphemes a Vaishnava, and whoever is envious of a Vaishnava, or angry with him, or whoever does not offer him obeisance, that feel joy upon seeing him, certainly falls into a hellish condition. So even you have to feel joy upon seeing a Vaishnava, even if you have some disagreement with him. If you don't feel joy, you can go to hell. Skanda Purana. Digyambara, remember at the same time, Advaita Das is trying to basically get Digyambara so angry that he leaves the place. So this is the reason he's quoting all these quotes. Otherwise, he wouldn't quote them. If he was trying to cultivate someone, he wouldn't use these quotes. But his motivation is, let me get rid of this guy as soon as possible. Digyambara, if one has bad association, one has no auspiciousness. What does one gain in the society of all these people? And Digyambara gets really upset. I have come to speak with a gentleman. We've all become bad people. Take association of pure Vaishnavas, I will go to my house. It's really interesting, isn't it? I think it was better to speak sweetly at that point. Advaita Das said, yes, thank you. You must return. How are we my childhood friends? How are my childhood friends? I do not desire to let you go. It's really, my God, he's changing his mood. If you have come by mercy, then stay some time and take prasad. He just insulted the poor guy. Digyambara said, Kalidas, you know that I do not eat out. I eat only havishyana. That's unspiced stuff. I have eaten it already and come here. I have been happy to see you. If there is another opportunity, I will come. I cannot remain till night. There are duties according to the system given by my guru. I take leave today. So, Advaita was hospitable. Advaita Das said, go, I will come and accompany you as far as the boat. Digyambara said, no, do your duties. There are some people with me. Saying this, Digyambara went off while singing about Kali. Advaita Das began chanting without obstacle in his hut.
Mission accomplished.
So that's a havishana. Mung dal and rice boiled without spice. and salt and everything like that. And that's, many devotees do that as an austerity. Not on Ekadashi, today's Ekadashi. Chapter 10. So these are more stories. These are really interesting stories. Chapter, of course we don't generally deal with people like that. But if people try to take us out of Krishna consciousness with some bogus philosophy, then, just to get rid of them, we may do something like that, depending on the relationship. Chapter 10, Jaiva Dharma and History. This is also very interesting. Well, the whole thing is interesting. The teacher, Hari Bhattacharya of Agradvipa, developed a doubt. Though he consulted with many people, the doubt did not leave him. Rather, it afflicted his heart even more. One day he asked, Chatubhuja, it means four-armed. But, these are typical names. Nyaya Ratna, that means the jewel of those who know Nyaya, or logic and reasoning. At the village of Katila. Bhattacharya, tell me how long Vaishnava Dharma has existed. This is the history of Vaishnava Dharma is dealt with here. Harihara Bhattacharya was initiated into Vaishnava Dharma and served Krishna in his house. Nyaya Ratna had labored for almost 20 years in Nyaya Shastra and by large was indifferent to Dharma. He did not like the trifling matters of Dharma. He was like what they call in Greece a sophist, someone who's simply interested in argumentation. He displayed little devotion during the worship of Durga. On being asked by Harihara, it occurred to Nyaya Ratna that Harihara was inclined to Vaishnava Dharma and would start arguing with him. It would be better to avoid this problem. So when he was thinking that he was just asking him a pointed question to argue with this guy into Nyaya, but he didn't know that Harihara was having some doubts in his mind about Vaishnavism. So his faith was not strong. Thinking in this way, Nyaya said, what type of question is this today? You have studied up to the portion called the Muktipada. In Nyaya Shastra, there is no discussion of Vaishnava Dharma. Why are you asking me this question? So Harihara, who was having some doubts at this point, said, O Bhattacharya, I have been initiated in Vaishnava mantra according to our family. Never did I have a doubt about Vaishnava Dharma. You know, Tarka means just argumentation again. These names are actually quite interesting if you understand the meaning of them. Tarka Chudamani. There's another jewel there. Vikramapura, you don't have to remember all these names. Recently, with the intention of uprooting, that means getting rid of Vaishnava Dharma, he has earned a lot of money giving heretical teachings everywhere. Heretical means like outside the Vedas, nonsense teachings, whatever. In a gathering mostly of Shaktas, remember we had this Digyambara in the last chapter, who's a Shakta. He said the Vaishnava Dharma is very recent. He said it had no substance and only low-class people became Vaishnavas. Upper-class people do not respect Vaishnava Dharma. When I first heard such a prominent person conclude in this way, my mind was somewhat pained. In other words, he felt pain, but then he gets doubts after that. So that's why we have to be careful about who we hear from. Thinking to myself, I saw that in Bengal there was no Vaishnava Dharma before Chaitanya Deva's appearance. Most were performing worship using Shakti mantras, because they were Shaktas. You understand? Shakti means the energy, like Durga. There were a few, like us, who worshipped using Vaishnava mantras, but in the end, they were also aiming for Brahman and making efforts for liberation. So those aren't real Vaishnavas. They are those who worship Vishnu or Krishna with the idea of getting liberated, using Vishnu or Krishna as a stepping stone. They also use the Guru as a stepping stone. Beep, beep. Prabhupada said, you're stepping on the head of the Guru and stepping on the head of Krishna. In this version of Vaishnava Dharma, everyone was worshipping 5 deities. So that you've heard of that before. Worship of the 5 deities like Ganesh and others, thinking they're all one. You have all this speculation like that. But after, in order to merge in Brahman, but after Chaitanya Deva, Vaishnava Dharma assumed a new form. The Vaishnavas cannot even hear the words liberation and Brahman. Remember Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? He was commenting on that one verse where it said in the Bhagavatam, Mukti Pade. He changed it to Bhakti Pade. And Lord Chaitanya said, you can't change it. Krishna's actually Mukundas, who gives mukti. I cannot say if they understand bhakti. Among the recent Vaishnavas I see, they are like a one-eyed cow going astray. In other words, they only understand part of Vaishnavism. Has this type of Vaishnava Dharma existed previously, or has it appeared from the time of Chaitanya Dev? Really good question. You know, is it Lord Chaitanya invented Vaishnava Dharma? That's what they're thinking. Of course, we know he didn't, but anyway. Nyaya Ratna observed Harihara's mood of a certain type. He was very satisfied. Oh, he's not a fanatical Vaishnava. He was not a fanatical Vaishnava. Thus he smiled. Remember this Nyaya Ratna. He was just into Nyaya, and he lost all interest in worship. You know, it's just all stupid stuff. Actually, I'm just interested in logic and reasoning. Thus, he smiled and said, Harihara, you are very learned in Nyaya Shastra. What you think, I also believe. You know, you're one of us now. Thank God, you know, Krishna liberated you by hearing these nice offenses. Isn't it? Let me make sure the volume is all right here. Hare Krishna. Let me just see. No one sent a note, but I just want to make sure. Let me adjust the volume again. Because sometimes the volume actually goes down when I'm chanting. Because it has automatic volume. Okay. Nyayaratna observed, so thus he smiled and said, Harihara, you are very learned in Nyaya Shastra. What you think, I also believe. Recently, some new Vaishnava Dharma has arisen. I'm afraid to say anything against them. In the age of Kali, we should be very cautious. Many wealthy people have accepted Chaitanya's ideas. They do not believe us. In other words, they're Maya. In fact, they regard us as enemies. I think that very soon our professions will be taken away. Even the oil merchants, betel vendors, and gold dealers speak on scriptures. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is so merciful that he's opened up Krishna consciousness for everybody. You know, even the betel vendors, oil merchants, you know, low-class people, gold dealers, isn't it? The Sonys. You have that word, Sonys?
Son.
Yeah. The Sonys. This has put us into great difficulty. For a long time, the Brahmanas have arranged that except for Brahmanas, people of other varnas could not study scriptures. Actually, this is important because even they were not allowed to chant Om. Om was only reserved for those who were actually Brahmanas. Don't chant Om. They could chant Namo Narayana, but not Om Namo Narayana. They would not tolerate if a lowly kayasta. Kayasta was generally considered a Shudra, but they were business people. If a lowly kayasta uttered the syllable Om, that's what I just said. Everyone respected our words. But now everyone becomes Vaishnava and discusses Tattva. Just like we've talked about Tattva the other day. You know, Tattva, like the Lord, the living entities, and the energies of the Lord. We have been defeated. From Nimai Pandit has come the destruction of the Brahmana's Dharma. And they actually thought like that when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur came and he did parikrama. They were throwing stones at him. They basically closed all the stores so that his people couldn't buy anything because he had initiated all these people from different castes. And not only that, there was an attempt on his life. They went to the police chief and they offered the police chief a bribe. And the police chief said, normally it's no problem, I can do this. But in the case of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I'm scared, he's a great saint. But normally anyone else you want killed, it's all right. Your life is very cheap some places in India, isn't it? That's when I have to when I go to Mayapur, I'm very careful not to talk about Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus or people think sometimes, why did the GBC act or like that? It's heavy there. It's heavy. I mean, one time, one of the GBC members did get beaten up. Because he wanted to end some of the corruption there, so they attacked him. So it's heavy. This is common knowledge. It's not something a secret. So these people are heavy. They try to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur just because he was initiating people who were not born in Brahmin families. Harihara, Tarka Chudamani has spoken correctly. Whether out of greed for money or out of seeing or from seeing and hearing. When I hear the words of the Vaishnavas, my body burns. They now say that Shankaracharya, by the order of the Lord, produced false Mayavadi scriptures. Vaishnava Dharma, they're saying Vaishnava Dharma is without a beginning. The Dharma, which is not even 100 years old, is becoming beginningless. This is real criticism. They condemn the wrong man. Let them say what they like. Navadvip was very good. Very good. But has now become very bad. It's the accent, right? Accent. Particularly within Navadvip at Gadagachi, some Vaishnavas live. They view the earth as an insignificant earthen pot. In other words, this material energy is not something that's permanent or important. Among them, a few are very learned and cause a great disturbance to the land. Varna Dharma, eternal Mayavada, and worship of devatas have been destroyed, he's lamenting. Even the Shraddha rites are not performed now. How will the teachers survive? Harihara said, O Bhattacharya, is there no remedy for this? Even now in Mayapur, there are 5 or 7 great learned brahmanas. On the other shore in Kuliagram, there are many smartas and logicians. If they join and attack Gadagacha, what will happen? Nyayaratna said, yes, that could happen if the Brahmana scholars were united. The Brahmana scholars are inimical to each other because of business. So in other words, even the people who don't like Vaishnavism, they can't get along because they're all competing with each other. Isn't it? Because, you get so much for doing a fire sacrifice or, havan, as they say nowadays. Or you get so much for giving a little kid a name, namakarana, or for doing a funeral. It's really, just like in Fiji, it's like that. They have like this, you have to be certified to give a child a name, legally, to be a Brahmin. They have a Brahmin caste, a Brahmin union. Like you have unions that work in different occupations here.
Yeah.
And they go on strike sometimes. So these Brahmins, so they want to limit who can actually do these. Because if you have a monopoly, you make more money, right? Think about it. The law of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Anyone studied economics in school? ABC stuff. You increase the supply, what happens? And the demand is constant. But you increase the supply, and what happens? The price goes down. Just like we see with the cars right now, with the electric cars. Like first Tesla was very high. They keep reducing the prices more and more because there's other companies coming out with electric cars, right? I don't know if you read about this. So people are lamenting, why did I buy now? Because the price is now much less, right? It happens. So anyway, so the same thing with the Brahmins, that we have to just like limit And and so anyway, these scholars don't get along with each other because they're the competitors in the Brahmin business. So I heard that some scholars took Krishna Chudamani to debate in Gadagachi. Defeated, they returned to their schools and then spoke only what was necessary. In other words, that was the story before they got defeated. Harihara said, Bhattacharya, you are my teacher and the teacher of many teachers. By seeing your commentary on Nyaya, many have learned to deceive. In other words, you can juggle words and you can prove anything. You should go there and defeat the Vaishnava scholars one time. Prove that Vaishnava Dharma is recent and not in accordance with the Vedas. If that happens, our previously approved worship of 5 deities will be preserved. Impersonalism. Even they have it in this Panchamukha Hanuman too, which is a complete concoction. Complete concoction. They get into all these things. Chaturabhuja Nyaya Ratna was a little afraid that he would meet the same fate as Krishna Chudamani. He said, Harihara, I will go in disguise. In other words, no one will recognize me. You as a teacher should start an argument. Harihara said, I will follow your order. The coming Monday I will cross the Ganga, and by the strength of Vyoma Mahadev, Monday arrived. Harihara, Kamala, Kanta, Sadashiva, who were 3 teachers taking Chaturabhuja and the Nyaya Ratna with them, crossed the Ganga from Arkatila. An interesting story. At 3.5 praharas in the afternoon, they arrived at Prajuna Kunja. That's where the Babajis were, and Vaishnava Das, who was the most educated, and sat in the Madhavi Bower like Durvas, chanting Hari Bol. They didn't really believe in Hari Bol. Advaita Das came outside and welcomed them and made them sit down. He asked, what can I do for you? Harihara said, we have come to discuss a little with the Vaishnavas. Advaita Das said, the devotees here do not argue on any topic. If you inquire sincerely on any topic, it is acceptable. The other day, several teachers argued on the pretext of inquiring and eventually fell into difficulty. I will ask Paramahansa Babaji and give you a reply. Saying this, he entered Paramahansa Babaji's hut. Advaita Das returned soon and spread out many seats. Paramahansa Babaji came to the bower and offered respects, first to Brinda Devi, Tulsi, and then to the high-class Brahmana guests. He folded his hands and inquired, great souls, please say what service I can do for you. See how humble Vaishnava is? Nyaya Ratna said, we will ask a few questions. Please answer. Hearing this, Paramahansa Babaji brought in Vaishnava Das. Because he was educating all the Shastras, Nyaya, Advaita stuff, everything, because he was a Mayavadi sannyasi before. So he had gone through it, and he was ready to take care of anything. And he was a pretty new devotee too. So when all the Vaishnavas had settled, Nyayaratna asked, is Vaishnava Dharma ancient or modern? Following Paramahansa Babaji's desire, Vaishnava Das spoke, Vaishnava Dharma is ancient and eternal. Nyayaratna said, I see 2 types of Vaishnava Dharma. One type that says the Brahman is formless. One cannot worship the formless. By designating an imaginary form and worshiping, one becomes pure in heart. In other words, you imagine the form of Krishna. You imagine the form of Ram. And you worship that form. And that helps you as a stepping stone, which you mentioned before, to come to the real realization that everything is formless. Brahman is formless. In other words, instead of, Bhagavan, Paramatma, and you also have Brahman, you have the opposite. From Bhagavan comes Paramatma, from Paramatma comes Brahman. I said from Brahman comes Paramatma, and then from Paramatma comes Bhagavan. So Brahman is the source of everything, rather than Bhagavan. So, When the heart is pure, knowledge of formless Brahman arises. When your heart is pure, when you chant it enough. So in other words, worship of the imaginary forms, O Radha, Krishna, O Rama, Nrsimha, Brahma Gyan manifests. So I'm worshiping these. Can you imagine? This is blasphemous. Phew. Those who worship the form of Vishnu with this conception and use Vishnu mantra are called Vaishnavas among those who worship the 5 forms. So in other words, these are real Vaishnavas. Another type of Vaishnava Dharma, and this is the type they're criticizing, says that the form of Vishnu or Rama or Krishna is eternal. Worshipping those forms with their mantras, the devotees attain eternal knowledge of that form and the form's mercy. Yes, we believe in that. According to them, the formless idea of Mayavad was an error propagated by Shankara. Among these 2 forms, which is ancient and which is eternal? So they're laying the groundwork for the argument at this particular point. They're defining their terms. This is really important. When you argue, you define your terms and the basis of the argument. And now, then they raise the question. So, first you define things, then you raise the question. Okay. Vaishnavada said the latter form is Vaishnava Dharma, the worship of the form, and the form is eternal, and you have an eternal relationship with that particular form of the Lord, Rama, Krishna, Nrsimha. That is ancient. The other Vaishnava Dharma is Vaishnava Dharma in name only. In other words, they're not Vaishnavas. It is the opposite of Vaishnava Dharma. It is temporary and propagated along with Mayavada. Mayavada basically means everything is illusion. All variety is illusion. Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. That's their typical saying. The Brahman is truth, this material world and everything else, and all variety that you see is false. Nyayaratna said, I've understood now that you have obtained this idea from Chaitanya Dev. He doesn't like Lord Chaitanya. According to you, this is Vaishnava Dharma. Just worship Radha, Krishna, Rama, Nrsimha is not, just worshiping Radha, Krishna, Rama, or Nrsimha is not Vaishnava Dharma. If one worships Radha, Krishna, and others with acceptance of Chaitanya ideas, then it becomes Vaishnava Dharma. That is fine. But how can you prove that this Vaishnava Dharma is ancient? This is really interesting. Vaishnava Das said, this type of Vaishnava Dharma is taught in the Vedic scriptures. This Vaishnava Dharma is taught in all the Smritis. There's the Shrutis, the Smritis. All the Itihasas, that means histories, Mahabharata, Ramayana, sing the qualities of this Vaishnava Dharma. Nyayaratna said, Chaitanya Deva's birth was not even 150 years ago. I see that he spread this teaching. How could this idea be ancient? Vaishnava Das said, this teaching has existed since the time the jivas appeared. In the material time, the jiva's beginning cannot be traced. Thus, the jiva is without beginning, and Vaishnava Dharma, the Dharma of the jiva, is also without beginning. Brahma is the first jiva of all within the universe. As soon as Brahma appeared, the instructions, known as the Vedas, the basis of Vaishnava Dharma, appeared. This is written in the Chatu Shloki. In Mundaka Upanishad 1.1, so he's going to start quoting some of the Shrutis and the Smritis to prove his point. It is described in this way. This is from the Mundaka Upanishad. Brahma Devanam Pratabasam Bhuva Vishwashakarta Bhuvanasya Gopta Samprama Vidyam Sarvavidya Pratishtam Atharvaya Jeshta Putraya Praha. Among all the demigods, Brahma was the first to take birth. He is the creator of the universe and also its protector. To his eldest son, Atharva, he instructed Brahma Vidya, which is the basis of all the branches of knowledge. It's a little family history. What this Brahma Vidya taught is explained in the Rig Veda. Now he's going to the Shrutis, Rig Veda, Samhita, and the Katha Upanishad. So you can see this guy is really educated in the Shrutis, the Smritis, the Itihasas, Puranas. He's a genius. The other Babajis may not have had that education before they took up Krishna consciousness. So, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sadapashanti Surya. That's from the Rig Veda. Actually, it's Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sadapashanti Surya. So we should also learn that quote, because people say, we just believe in the original Vedas, the Rig Veda, for example, like you have some of these groups, the Karma Mimamsa groups, and so Diviva Chakshur Hatatam Vishnuriyat Paramam Padam. The devotees see that supreme abode of Vishnu spread in the sky like the sun at all times. That is the supreme abode of Vishnu. Like the Arya Samaj, you can use that verse on them. Just say, look, this is what it says in the Rig Veda. You believe in the Rig Veda? Well, Prabhu, you better follow it. And then in the Svetasvatara Upanishad 5.4 it says, Eko Devo Bhagavan Varenyo Yoni Swabhavam Aditisyat Jayadka. The one Supreme Lord, most excellent, regulates all the beings born in this world. In the Tatatriya Upanishad it says, Satyam Jnanam Ananta Brahma Yoveda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Yomam Soshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschita. He who knows that Brahman, not that Brahman, who is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, enjoys all pleasures along with the all-knowing Brahman. Tatatriya Upanishad 2.1.2. Nyayaratna said, you've explained Vaishnava Dharma by quoting the Vedic statement, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. How can you explain that it is not the Vaishnava Dharma included in the Mayavad doctrine? Because the Mayavad doctrine, again, just to reiterate, is you worship Vishnu with the idea of giving him up ultimately. So he's saying, maybe this is the reason for them saying Om Tad Vishnu Param Padapashanti Yat Surya. Okay, Vaishnava Das said, Vaishnava Dharma included in Mayavad has no eternal obedience to the Lord. On attaining knowledge, one accepts oneself as Brahman, that means spirit. But Katha Upanishad 1.2.23 says, this is actually a really interesting verse. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo namediyana buhuna shutena mamevasha vinute tena labhyas tashyayishatma vivinute tanum sham. The Lord is not attained by speaking, by intelligence, or by hearing. He is attained by the person whom he chooses. Says the person there. The Lord shows his form to him. Anugatya Dharma, being a servant of the Lord, is the only Dharma. If by that the Supreme Brahman shows mercy, one can see his eternal form. This cannot be attained by Brahma Jnana, knowledge of Brahman, etc. For this one strong statement of the Vedas, one can understand that pure Vaishnava Dharma has its roots in the Vedas. That means the Rig Vedas. The Vaishnava Dharma that Mahaprabhu gave is Dharma approved by all the Vedas. There can be no doubt about that. Nyayaratna said, is there a Vedic statement that finally the essence is worshipping Krishna and not Brahma Jnana? So here's more quotes. So he's so educated. Vaishnava Das said, Raso Vaisa, the Lord is Ras. Ras means like the taste of relationship. Tatatriya, Upanishad 2.7.1, Shamach Chavalam Prapadye, Chavalach Chamam Prapadye. Surrender to the dark blue Lord. I surrender to his variegated qualities. Surrendering to his qualities, I surrender to him. Chandogya Upanishad 8.13.1. In many Vedic statements, worship of Krishna is the final goal. Nyayaratna said, is Krishna's name mentioned in the Vedas? Vaishnava says, is not Shama a name of Krishna? Apasham Gopa Mani Padya Mana Ma. I saw the coward who does not fall, etc. The Vedic statements mention Krishna, the son of a coward. But that's actually, it's not a twisted meaning. Gopa is a coward. I mean, you know, the jewel coward boy. So Jaiva said, these are just twisted meanings. Vaishnava said, if you study the Vedas thoroughly, you will see that the Vedas use such indirect statements in all manners. Sages produced. Jaiva said, now please explain the history of Vaishnava Dharma. And Vaishnava said, I have said the Vaishnava Dharma arose with the Jiva. Brahma was the first Vaishnava. Shiva is a Vaishnava. All the first Prajapatis were Vaishnavas. Prajapatis means those who have a lot of kids. But Prabhupada even gave one of his disciples the name Prajapati. He never had kids, though. He's the Lord of the Prajas, you know. Krishna is a Prajapati, you know, he's the Lord of everybody. And Lord Brahma is the Prajapati, and your friend Daksha is a Prajapati. Daksha had 10,000 sons, and he wanted them also to follow in his footsteps and become Prajapatis, but Narada Muni had a different idea. And then he had 1,000 sons after that, and Narada Muni did the same thing. Whoops! Oh my God, I got so ecstatic. You know, sometimes you hit the wrong thing here. So anyway, and then he got so disturbed. Of course, he cursed Narada Muni, but he got so disturbed. He said, "I'm only going to have girls from now on." And of course, even one of his daughters was married to Lord Shiva. He even ended up in trouble with that, isn't it? First he curses Narada Muni, then he offends Lord Shiva, gets his head cut off, and has a goat's head, you know. So that's the problem with being proud of your Prajapati-ness. Okay. Brahma's mental son, Narada, was a Vaishnava. Obviously, Narada is known in all the Vedic literatures. Did not Vaishnava Dharma exist from the time of creation? Everyone does not have a nature beyond everyone does not have a nature beyond the gunas, and to the extent that the jiva's nature is beyond the gunas, to that extent the jiva is a Vaishnava. In other words, right now our nature is covered, so we don't have it beyond the gunas. Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Puranas are histories of the Aryas. Aryas means the civilized people. At the time of creation, there was Vaishnava Dharma. When Devatas, humans, Daityas, and others were described, Prahlad and Dhruva were also from the beginning. You know, so that story is in all the Vedic literatures. You know, Prahlad's story, the Dhruva story. And they were Vaishnavas. Narada Muni was a Vaishnava. What are you thinking, you rascal? Only the most famous persons are described by name in the histories. One cannot say how many other devotees there were at that time of Prahlad and Dhruva. Dhruva was the son of Manu. So Manu is the father of mankind, right? Actually, he was the son of the son. Anyway, Prahlad was the grandson of Kashyapa Prajapati. Because, yeah, Kashyapa made some mistakes. Anyway, so there was no doubt that they existed in the beginning, because, you know, the Shingadev. I mean, Hiranyakashipu, yeah, is a problem. So there's no doubt that they existed from the beginning. One can see that pure Vaishnava Dharma existed from the beginning of history. Later, the kings of the moon and the sun dynasties and the great sages were surrendered to Vishnu. This was the state in Satya, Treta, and Dwapara Yugas. In Kali Yuga, in the southern states, you know, south of India, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, and Vishnu Swami, and in the western region, Nimbarka. These are the Sampradaya Acharyas. Lead many people to pure Vaishnava Dharma. In other words, they appeared way before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By their mercy, half the population of India was delivered from the ocean of Maya and attained shelter at the feet of the Lord. In Bengal, Chaitanya Dev delivered many miserable fallen people. Seeing all this, can you not understand the glory of Vaishnava Dharma? Whoops, I think we have to end here, because 7:50 a.m. That's the time I set. So, all right, so we will end here and take some questions. Let me unmute people. Okay. The people online are allowed to unmute themselves. And so, who here wants to unmute themselves?
Good one.
Who here has a question? Question? Anybody in the audience here?
Just wanted to check.
There's already a question.
Oh, there's already a question in the chat. Okay. Hare Krishna Gurudev. How does Vaishnava Dharma fit in with the various types of Vedanta philosophies such as Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita? Advaita is not Vaishnava Dharma. Dvaita is a type of Vaishnava Dharma that's taught by Madhvacharya, which talks about, if you talk about the different teachings of the acharyas, it's extreme dualism. And it's different than Chincha Beta Beta Tattva, which is one and different simultaneously. The Lord is one and different simultaneously from his energies and from the jiva souls. And Vishishta Dvaita is also Vaishnavism. That was taught by Sripad Ramanujacharya, which is a purified oneness, which is basically the same thing as the Chincha Beta Beta Tattva. So that's Vaishnavism. That's Vaishnava. Both is a Vaishnava. But Advaita philosophy was taught by Shankaracharya, and that's not Vaishnavism. That's pseudo-Vaishnavism. You worship Vishnu with the idea of getting liberated. Okay, so that was a question from Abhay Chaitanya in Australia. So who has a question here? Someone must have a question. Okay, anyone in line? Now's your chance. Someone in line should ask a question now. You got going once? No, everyone's shy. Gopal, you can ask a question? Oh, there.
Hello.
Tulsi, why don't you ask a question?
Okay. So please set my obeisance. So gaslighting is a real topic these days, and
Yeah.
So and it's pretty all pervasive. It's pretty all pervasive. So how is trying to be a Vaishnav? How does one deal with that without labeling someone or losing sight?
Okay. I will explain that. First, I have to explain to everyone what gaslighting is, which you probably don't know. So let me mute you. So gaslighting means that you say something, like you light a fire to start the fire. So you say something to someone to get them angry at you, or to get them angry. That's called gaslighting. You got it? It's a term that's very common in the Western world. It's gaslighting. So we actually find that Advaita Das did that with the Yambara. He gaslighted him. So, but people do that with us too. And in this particular case, you find that Nyaya Ratna is actually doing that with Vaishnava Das. He's trying to gaslight him. So how do you deal with that? Compassion. You have to be compassionate and tolerant and everything like that. And sometimes you just smash the person. Sometimes I probably would just smash the person. You gaslighted me? All right, here's the fire, So that, it's a technique. And we find that people often, another word for gaslighting is baiting someone. Or asking a pointed question. You understand what I mean? Just to get a specific response from someone. So when we see someone doing that, we should analyze, understand that's what they're doing, and not respond to it. That's the main thing. We should be intelligent enough that this person's trying to make me angry. and not respond to it. So that's how you deal with it. So who else has a question? Either online? Yes.
Follow-up question on that one. So Vaishnava obviously is a very learned personality in the Shastra,
Yeah.
and so he's able to respond to him in a very
Yeah.
educated way.
Yeah.
But what if someone is gaslighting us and we don't know the answers, for example, like it's beyond our intelligence?
Beyond our intelligence, then we refer to someone who has the intelligence.
So that's what the other Babaji's did. They called
Yeah,
Vaishnava.
yeah. Yeah, we just say, here's the email address, whoever.
Because it was also obvious that this Harihara, right? He was a Vaishnava, right? But his faith, he had doubt. He joined the club of Shaktas, basically, and
Yeah.
went to argue with the Vaishnava.
Yeah.
So he was also a Vaishnava who kind of heard, and it was maybe above his intelligence to comprehend. And he got doubts, and then he became offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it became offensive. Yeah. But anyway, here's the gaslighting is actually defined according to the dictionary is the subjective experience, what you experience, having one's reality. This is, wow, everyone is just really giving me definitions. Repeatedly questioned by another, a colloquialism term derived from the title of the 1944 American film Gaslight. Gaslight, a verb, gerund, present participle. Gaslighting, manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own insanity, gaslighting them, or the powers of reason. In the first episode, Karen Valentine is being gaslighted by her husband. Did you ever have someone do that to you? Yeah, sometimes. It's very good. Thank you for your definition, Gopalji. You are expert in gaslighting. So anyway, that's good. Yeah, you question someone's reality. Thank you, Gurudev. So anyway, we just have 2 more minutes left. So anybody else have a question or comment?
May I ask a question, Gurudev?
Yeah.
Please accept my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So it's mentioned in the Jaiva Dharma that one commits an offense if one doesn't feel joyful upon seeing a Vaishnava.
Right.
But by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we are now living in a world with many, 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 many Vaishnavas. And by Srila Prabhupada's and his disciples' mercy, they're spread out everywhere all over the planet, which is amazing. But it also means there's a great variety of Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
And when you have a variety of personalities, even in the spiritual world, they don't always feel joy upon seeing one another, at least ostensibly.
Yeah.
So how does one feel joy, but also protect one's sanity?
Well, first of all, we have to define what a Vaishnava is. As far as the material world, we have to define what a Vaishnava is. And generally, a Vaishnava, well, in this particular case, would be someone at least on the Madhyamadikari platform. And Kanishta we offer respects in the mind, but we may feel some reticence, some doubt, because they may be engaged in political affairs or something like that and criticizing others. And, but not that we disrespect, but offer respect in the mind. And a Madhyamadikari, we actually offer respects, but in both cases we feel joy because they remind us of Krishna. Even if someone is like envious or something like that, some qualities are not desirable, they remind us of Krishna, they're Vaishnavas, which is very rare. But we don't associate with them if they're on the Kanishta level. So, and as far as in the spiritual world, these are pastimes. Actually, the residents of Vrindavan, as they're doing their dramatic pastimes, they may seem to be inimical or angry with others, but in essence, they actually feel joy. Now, you can't think that, like, when Chandravali is upset, well, because she doesn't get as upset as Radharani, but when she's upset or Radharani's upset, that they're feeling hateful towards each other. It's like a competition. In a bona fide competition, I mean, amongst Vaishnavas, like we compete, or we used to compete insofar as book distribution is concerned, we didn't feel hateful towards each other. We felt joyful when someone did better than us. So it's not that there's any sort of animosity in the spiritual world. And people don't understand that. I mean, I've seen people who think that they're followers of Chandravali, and then they don't want to hear Radharani's name. You know, that's a misunderstanding of what's going on in the spiritual world. It's a competitive spirit, although some of the symptoms may appear to be really heavy.
Transcendental enviousness.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the symptoms appear to be really heavy. But they're acting that way to give pleasure to Krishna. Actually, Chandravali loves Radharani. And that's proved in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Chandravali becomes a Rukmini. You know the story? And Radharani is Satyabhama. And then in the end, when Chandravali recognizes, that is Rukmini, recognizes that Satyabhama is actually Radharani, she's so happy to see her. You know, so whatever appears to be like heavy language between the two of them is simply they're giving pleasure to Krishna and a competitive spirit. You know, you can have people you love that you're competing with too, right? You know, I mean, sometimes when I was young, I would play like chess with my brother. And I love my brother. It's not that I hated him. But even while I was playing chess, I would actually call him names. I said, you're stupid. You can't figure out how to do this, you know. Right? I mean, it's even sporting games sometimes. You have friends and you choose different sides, and you call each other names. You're hopeless. You know, and it appears, you know, making fun of them. Like we had our volleyball games in Suva when we were opening up the temple. And myself, you know, and Nishinga you all know Nishinga Sometimes he was on the opposite side, and I would just say, you're worthless. You know, you don't even know what a ball is. You know? Of course, he's much better than me, I know. Because he's taller, you know, he was able to spike the ball. But anyway, I mean, that's what you do. So you hear these external things, but there's no hate between them. They all love each other like anything. Chandravali is an expansion of Srimati Radharani. So people have this misunderstanding. You know, I'm a follower of Chandravali. And, you know, it's just not like that. You know, Chandravali chants Radharani's name. Okay. One devotee says, ha ha ha, I'm gaslighting someone. Anyway. I want to make sure they're not watching. No, they're not watching anyway. Ha ha ha, gaslighting. Because I'm challenging someone's sense of identity. You know, someone thinks I'm a gopi, and then I just challenge, you really haven't realized that yet. So that's gaslighting. Like if a devotee comes to me and says, I realize my spiritual nature. I'm a gopi. I said, no, you're full of lust. That's gaslighting. Challenging their identity. Can't one gaslight themselves? And isn't it common? I don't know. Gaslight themselves, you know. Yeah, I guess they could. It's not really gaslighting. Unless you become angry at yourself. Okay, I think we have to end. Enough funny questions for today. So thank you very much. We'll see someone else posted something? No. See everybody tomorrow. It's later today. Tomorrow for class online. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.